All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jackie Hastings. I'm a Sapphire with our Team Impact here, and I'm super excited. I know I say that every time, to go over pages 68 through 96, Maxwell's Winning with Hope. And I don't know about you, but the chapters that we're in always seem to have something that's applicable like right away. And it's applicable with family, it's applicable with friends, it's applicable with school. With my daughter learning a new sport. Actually, both of them are now learning new sports. Kinley decided last night she's doing basketball for the first time ever. We don't even have a basketball at our house. We had to go buy one last night. So it's funny. It goes to winning with people, being coachable, learning, being willing to do the scary things, which is what we're doing every doggone day. Or page 68, we start off talking about the exchange principle. And with that, instead of putting others in their place, we must put ourselves in their place. And I'm repeating that a lot because sometimes, man, people are annoying sometimes and you just want to like, "Ugh." But instead, when they come to you and you're like, for the 856th time telling someone something, stop and pause and put yourself in their place. Why are they maybe not understanding this? Did they not sleep enough last night? Have they been really sick? Are they super stressed? Their brain might not be working to high capacity because they've got other things going on. And we have to pause and put ourselves in their place and figure out their learning needs so we can really help them. It's not about us, it's about them. So the question to ask ourselves in this scenario is, do I try to see things from others' points of view? And um, it is so important. So important. So with success comes options. Wealthy people can use their resources to benefit others or only themselves. And when I was reading this, I was thinking about how we have so many leaders on our teams, how many of our diamonds have used their big money, guys, to do orphanages, to give so generously to others. We have people who are adopting people from Africa and all sorts of different places. And, really putting a lot of money into helping others when they could just be buying the biggest, bestest of everything. And that's not what they're doing. So I find that that was really interesting. And I immediately went to that thought. Um, do people desire to use their power to put others in their place or to put themselves in others' places? So when you have that extra time and money, you can pause and think about things and think about where other people are coming from because you're not having to pound the pavement and beat the clock and do things quite so hard. You can stop and look and spend the time and do more things to envision where others are. I think that that's super important. Or you could use that money to downplay others. Not cool, right? We don't see ourselves and others from the same perspective. We judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while others judge us by what we have already done. That was like, ooh, ouch. You might see yourself in one way, but others are seeing you for what you have done and how you're making them feel. So you have to keep that in mind. We see ourselves in a positive light and we should give others the same benefit of the doubt. I mean, I don't think people really desire to be uncoachable, unteachable, in a bad spot. Any of those things could letting get in the way of something. And so asking those people questions and genuinely being concerned and understanding is so important. If you have somebody who's like, I can't take my supplements, I can't remember to take them. Okay, well, tell me about that. What does your daily routine look like? And then you start to ask these questions and help to understand. And so often it's not that they can't remember, they haven't prioritized it because maybe they haven't gotten the benefits out of it, maybe because they haven't been consistent, and it falls into a big circle. So helping to understand and educate is so important, and understanding where they're at. And if they're so poop when they come home that they're not brushing their teeth before they go to bed, they're not pausing to do their prayers or meditations or devotionals or whatever before bed or when they get up in the morning, they're maybe not linking what they're doing in their supplements to an activity, and then they're not being successful. Or same thing with their IPA, reaching out to people or posting or doing those things. If they're not seeing all of the benefits of it immediately, sometimes people are really easy to give up. let's say this is scary for people. If you've got someone who's shy or maybe a little bit naive on social media and they're afraid to post and they posted once and nothing happened, they might be so hurt and afraid to do it again that they're not going to. So trying to understand why before we start to go, well, you just got to put up a post. You just have to reach out to people. Yes, it's scary if you haven't done it for a lot of people. For us, we do it all the time. So it's kind of like it's a routine, it's a habit, it's not so hard anymore. But to hear those no's, to hear people not responding, that's hard for somebody who isn't used to that. So putting yourselves back to where those people were when we first started out is so, so important. Then we go into how to make the exchange. Okay, leave your place and visit their place. The best way to keep from stepping on other people's toes is to put yourselves in their shoes. I'm like, I love all these little nifty quotes, right? So do whatever you can to change your perspective, listen to people's concerns, study their culture or profession, read their areas of interest, visit their place. I loved this quote by Truman. When we understand the other fellow's viewpoint, understand what he's trying to do, 9 out of 10 times he's trying to do right. I mean, people, again, don't typically strive to do evil, do a poor job. We don't get up today and say, you know what, I'm really going to be awful today. I'm going to be awful at my job. I'm going to be an awful mom. I'm going to be an awful wife. I'm going to be awful at the school. And you know what? I'm just going to be awful. I highly doubt anybody does that. If they do, they need more help. But go, what's one little thing we can work on today? So acknowledge that the other person has a valid viewpoint. Okay, I see you're having a hard time taking your supplements. Okay, I can see where with what you've got going on with all the craziness with those little kids running around the house where you might not be prioritizing yourself. What little steps can we take? Are you taking any time for yourself? Do you have anybody at home that can help you out? Do you have 2 minutes that you're sitting on the toilet and can do a reach out? I mean, these are little ways that we can think about these things. So check your attitude. When you're vested in the outcome, you're often more concerned with getting your way than making a way to connect with others. Because sometimes our spouses, they're like annoying, right? And they're more annoying when we want something our way and we want it to go our way and it's easier and all of this stuff because we know doggone it, we're right because we're smart, we know these things, but they just don't see it our way. But if we would just shut up for 2 seconds and listen to their viewpoint, maybe we're not both wrong. Maybe both of us are a little bit right, and we can butt our heads together and we can get it out right. They might have. I had asked him earlier, we Life 360 Taylor because she's driving now, and her top speed the other day was 75. There's no 75-mile-an-hour zones around here, are there, Steve? Nope. Even if Life 360 is a little bit off, it's not 10 miles an hour off. So I asked him and I said, hey, can you talk to Taylor about this a little bit too, so I'm not always just the mean one? In my head, I heard, I want you to reinforce when I say something like this, because I'm going to talk to her too. So when I talked to him, I said, hey, I mentioned this to Chili. He's like, wait a minute, I thought you said it. You asked me to do it. And I'm like, no, 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 no. He's like, I thought I was going to talk to her. So stopping and listening and saying, hey, I can see where you thought that I meant for you to do it and you to do it. So it's stopping and pausing, listening where the other person's coming from, and then going, okay, I can see where you heard that. And he says, I can see where you heard that. Let's make sure we're a little bit more clear next time on what we're doing because we're both in this together. Same thing with all of this too. So ask others what they would do in your situation. So if you have someone who's having a hard time, ask them, hey, what would you do here? Um, Key exchange principle is empathy. You know what? I can see where this is hard for you. I can understand where this may be difficult. What would you do if you could do XYZ? Could you do ABC? I think this is one of those times where it's really good to say, use those feel, felt, found things like, you know what? I can see where you would feel that way. I can see where this would feel like it's hard. And you know what? It felt hard for me at first too. Um, and what I found was if I laid out a plan and I wasn't attached to the outcome, but I was attached to the action of getting things done, no matter what the outcome was, I felt like I was still accomplished. Is that something you think you could do? How would you feel if you did that? So sometimes asking those things and going over it. When you have a minute, definitely make sure you go over the questions on page 77. They're pretty insightful. Then we hop onto the learning principle. Each person we meet has the potential to teach us something. You know, you've heard those things. We've learned all of the lessons we ever need to learn in kindergarten. You know, be a nice person, share, donate the Play-Doh. I'm just kidding. That's how we got into Plexus with Kinley because she was eating everything she wasn't supposed to, but that's a whole nother story. So, and from her, I learned, right? If it wasn't for Kinley eating those things and doing those behaviors, ask more questions and knew more things, I wouldn't be here with you all, right? So do I approach people with a desire to learn from them? You know, when you see a new person and you might be annoyed by them asking lots of questions or not doing what you would anticipate them doing, and you ask those questions, you might have something to learn from them. Maybe it's something you didn't think of before. Maybe it's a different way that you can do things. And that's where you need to check your attitude. How is your attitude? There's one of three attitudes people can be at. Number one, no one can teach me anything. They're arrogant. They got an attitude. These are the people I hate to deal with. I want to flick them in the nose. They're annoying, right? Some people think they know it all. We don't know it all. And really be careful when you're talking to your people and that you don't come across as a know-it-alls. And there's oftentimes I'm like, I don't know. Let me ask someone who does, or I can look that up for you. If someone's just new starting this off and you come across like you know everything under the sun, they might not think that they can do this because they don't feel like they have the knowledge that you do. But if you can point them to a resource in our team page, utilize your three-way chats. You have so many resources available, and let that person know those resources are available as well. But if they won't listen and they're so arrogant, it's okay to bless and release. Don't waste your time and your attitude and your strength and negativity on that at all. Okay. Number two, someone can teach me everything. It's the total naive attitude, right? And these people often tend to really idolize somebody, seek out a mentor, but sometimes they'll get stuck in only wanting to only listen to one mentor, one person, one thing. But we need many mentors. We can't learn everything from just one person. So that's where it's important to have those three-way chats, where it's important to hop on book clubs, team calls, all those different things, because there's so much to learn. If you're only getting one viewpoint, you're gonna miss things. The third attitude, everyone can teach me something, teachable attitude. These are the people I love. They suck it all in like a sponge from everywhere. Be the sponge people. Those who learn more aren't necessarily the ones who spend time with the smartest people, but rather are the ones that have a teachable attitude. I just need to be willing to listen. So make sure you're not talking all the time, that you're pausing to listen. Okay, how do we learn from others? If you're teachable, then you need to follow these 5 steps. 1, make learning your passion. You know, the day that I'm going to stop learning is the day they put me in the ground, right? And then I'll be sucking it all up from having to have like great knowledge, hopefully, right? But every day we learn something. So people subconsciously retard their own intellectual growth. They rely on habits and comfort and stop learning and run on idle. How often is it easy just to coast? Think about how often, excuse me, you might be driving to work and then you get to work, you're like, how the heck did I even get there? It's a habit. You just do it every day. You know, even the other morning, I asked Damon, I says, did you tell me goodbye before you left? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, man, I must have been really whooped sleeping hard. You know, it's those things that we do every day. We have to pause and make sure that we're doing something a little different, that we're not just coasting, that we're seeking to learn more, do more, grow more. If you desire to keep growing, you cannot sit back in your comfort zone. You need to make learning your goal. So even if it's learning one new thing a day, reading 5 pages in a book, looking up something every day, it's huge. Then we've got to value people. People don't learn from people they don't value. You know, if you have a teacher that you've hated or, you know, a boss that has been awful, you don't have respect for them. Odds are if they tell you something, you're just going to let it go in one ear and out the other, and you're just going to float along just to get by. We don't want that. We want people to value us as well, and we want to value others. Number 3, develop relationships with growth potential. Even though everyone has something to teach us, it doesn't mean anyone can teach us everything we want to learn. Look for experts in the potentially and inspire us to go to the next level. So, you know, even our Diamond Fallon, she did different training with like the Eric Worre training. She seeks out these different trainings, all these different things, because even though she's making like $8 magazillion a month or something, she knows that her brain has more potential. Her business has more potential. We're not at her level. We definitely have more potential. So keep going. Number 4, identify people's uniqueness and strengths. I love this quote too. I have never met a man who was not my superior in some particular. If I look at everybody on this call, I know each one of you is better at something, if not many more things than I am at. You all have something to teach me. And I don't care. I'm a kindergartner, those people I learn from. If you're a diamond, who you are, we all can learn from someone. Ask questions. Learning begins with listening. Sometimes we just need to shut up and listen. And sometimes it's easier to spout off than it is to just sit there and have the awkward silence. You will never know who you might be listening or who might be listening and learning from you as well. Change is always the goal of learning. You cannot have growth without change, and change can be painful and you can turn into something completely different. I mean, a caterpillar, when it goes into its chrysalis, dissolves and grows whole new body parts. Adolescence is awkward and weird, and we grow and we hurt and we change into different things. Our bodies do weird things. We're learning and growing here as well. So we have to accept that and be willing to get outside that comfort zone. Okay, now we're on to the charisma principle. People are interested in the person who is interested in them. So if you're sitting here and you're doing this, yeah, I'm not talking to you. Okay, I am. But if you want to learn, you got to be a little interested. If you're just zoning out, probably not learning a whole lot, and you're probably not really encouraging that other person to talk to you too. So Dale Carnegie, we read his book. It was fantastic. It's on my shelf back here somewhere. The How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in there, he says you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. And this is what we talk about all the time. And we're trying to get people, trying to get people. It's not about that. We want people to be interested in us, right? What can we add value to those people? So if you're not adding value to people, you're just like bleh. So make sure that you're adding value to people, and that will get them interested in you than the other way around. So do I usually focus on others and their interests or my own? Ooh, that's a deep question. So again, it's not about me, it's about them. And sometimes we have to pause. And when we're reaching out to someone and we're like, I'm just not getting any joins. I'm just not getting this. They're just not answering my questions. What kind of questions are you asking them? What kind of conversations are you having with them? That's where it's a really great way to take a screenshot and send it to your mentor and say, hey, can you help me with this? I'm just not getting where I want. And is it not getting where I want? Where are my goals? And are my goals me focused or are they others focused? And sometimes we have to go, oh, gut punch there, right? So in the questions you're asking, you know, if you go home and you ask your spouse or you ask your kid, how was your day? What's usually their answer? Okay, good. You know, but if you ask them, can you tell me about what you had for lunch? Can you tell me something interesting that happened at school today? Ask more of those open-ended questions. Let them talk more. If you want to connect with others, focus on them and not yourself. 6 ways to make people like you. credited by Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people. So that's important. If you're bored, read that book. Number 1, become genuinely interested in people. Greetings and goodbyes. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It doesn't matter how powerful or smart you are. People will respond to you better if you first let them know that they matter to you as individuals. So important. We're not just here to get paid for what we're selling people. We want to actually genuinely help people, and people will read right through you if you're coming off wrong. It's okay. We all goof up. We can fix it. Go back and say, you know what? I think I didn't approach this the best way to serve you. Will you give me another chance to help you? I've learned more things. I'd like to be able to help you better. Admit your faults. You guys, sometimes saying that we've messed up makes us so much more human to someone, and asking for forgiveness and the willingness to be able to help somebody in a better way. Smile. A smile is inviting. It's fun. Just go through and smile at people in the store. They might think you're crazy, but maybe somebody had a bad day and you can help them. We've also talked to, when you're leaving voice messages for people, or if we're typing a message to somebody, if you're in this kind of mode, it comes out. Smile while you're giving your messages. Do that. You'll have a more positive response, and so will your people. Remember, a person's name to him or her is the sweetest and most important sound. So when we're sending messages to people, don't just copy and paste the thing of, we're having a sale this month. Whoop-de-doo. They don't give a rip. But if you say, hey, Rochelle, I just want to let you know that we're having a sale this month. It's going to save you this amount of dollars. I know that you've been looking to try Restore. This is a really great opportunity. When's a great time to follow up or hop on the phone? That's way better than, hey, Restore's on sale this month. Would you like some? They don't give a rip. But you actually said their name. You said why it's important and how you can serve them. You're going to get a better response that way. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. So asking them more questions about themselves. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. So if you have a mom that you're working with who's exhausted, can't sleep, they've got toddlers running around like crazy, or they're heading back to school and they're worried about finances, talk about those things. You know what? Elizabeth, I know that you just spent a whole bunch of money on your kids' school supplies, and I know that it's hard this time of year. I know that you're also really worried about having to take time off from work if your kids get sick. There's a really great deal right now where we can get you started on some things to help you with your energy and your kids' immune systems as they go back to school. That will help save you money. You earn money back on your purchases. Your kids will be sick less, most likely. Is that something we could hop on the phone and talk about? You're reaching out to their needs, their interests. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Those things are so important to do. If somebody hit a small goal, if they hit a little bit goal, you drank all your water for your day, you've been consistent with the month, celebrate those things. Those are big. They made a change. So from woo to you. So Elizabeth is the queen of woo. But now we're going to go from woo to you. If you want to be the kind of person who makes others smile when they see you coming, get outside yourself, change your focus, and become interested in others. Doing these things will change your life. And this is what we're doing with these products, with this business opportunity, with this community. We're changing lives. So on that note, I'm going to shut my mouth, let you guys talk, and I would love to hear if you have anything else to share.
There are just so many great points that you did. I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about that. Then you did. Like you hit them all. That's awesome. That's perfect. No, I love it. But something that kind of stood out to me too, because I say it all the time at work with my colleagues. I have a couple who are very introverted, and they had, as I was mentoring them, had a hard time like relating to patients and kind of developing that relationship quickly, like we have to do. And I coach them. I'm like, it's better to be interested than interesting. So ask them questions about themselves, when get them talking about themselves first, and that will leave a lasting impression, and it'll take the pressure off of you as an introvert. You won't feel like you have to carry the conversation. And I also had to say this to my student this summer who constantly talked about himself. So I was like, we need to flip that conversation around. I'm like, I would quiz them after the patient. I'm like, so tell me something you learned about their life. What are they doing this weekend? And he couldn't come up with it. And so I would have to tell him it's better to be interested than interesting. And that will build that relationship faster with people. So asking people questions about them, it works the same with Plexus too. They will feel like you genuinely care about them. You will learn more about them and their pain points. And, you can keep that conversation going. And even if you don't bring up Plexus that day, they're going to feel like they're going to be like, wow, like Jackie really cares about me. Like she was asking about, where I went this weekend, and what, type of camping equipment we used, and, what activities I found for the kids. Like she was really, truly interested in us. And then that way, when you start to talk about health concerns, when you start to talk about money concerns, and you're asking about them, they'll remember how you truly do care, and they'll be more receptive to listening when you.
So important. I mean, if we're trying to change somebody's life and we don't even know what they need changing, what in the world have we done? If you don't know what their goals, what their lives are like, we can't help because we don't know unless we've taken the time to care, to share, to ask all those things. So great points, Rochelle.
Definitely good points. And this whole book was very interesting. One of the parts that really stood out the most to me, you had mentioned it, but just the perspective of, us versus them, like we judge ourselves on our intentions and our expectations and what's going on there versus we judge on other people on what they actually get done. And so not that we have to worry about being judged or what other people think of us necessarily, but two, it was like, okay, if I'm building a team and having people, you know, finding them help with their health, like what am I showing people? Like they're not going to see my intention that I meant to work out and then there was X, Y, and Z that happened along the way, or, we went for ice cream, but I'm also not telling you about all of the other things I do. Not that I have to, explain my whole life to everybody, but it's just being mindful of like what we put out too, and also then turning around and being, less judgmental in a way, as much as I try to be anyways, because people have life too, that things happen, that I should have the same respect of them and set that good example. And just reminding people of that too as they're building their own team and sharing with others and having, kind of readjusting your perspective.
So important, definitely. I mean, none of us are perfect, and coming at it from that viewpoint of, I'm not perfect either, but these are some tips that I found that were helpful for me. What kinds of things do you think could be helpful for you? Because you're in this to succeed. How can we help you to succeed? So that's so important. Like points. And yeah, I have ice cream too. And we also see people, especially summertime or whatnot, or working or whatever. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. And we can say that. I get that. I understand busy. But what can you do? Can you take 2 minutes here? Can you take 5 minutes there? Can you sit and send out a message while you're sitting watching something, TV? What can you do? What do you want to do? What are your priorities? How can I help you succeed with those? So, oh, super important. And sometimes it's as simple as getting the family involved, right, Melissa? You know, these calls later at night, it's harder sometimes at times, and you might not have help at home, but what can you do? You can bring a kid in with you if you need to. You can do these things. It is doable if it's really a goal you want to achieve. And they'll share with you just like that.
Yep, you can say that again, Jackie. Super important. And it's nice because it's all these same things that we can then turn around and teach our kids because they're fantastic life skills.
I'm tired.
You know, and these things I found really helpful. You know, my kid, you know, reading this, and you know, she teenage boys, they're weird, right? And teenage girls are weird, and their way of communicating is so messed up, and it feels weird because their bodies are changing and doing all these things. Well, it's not totally uncommon with what we've got when we've got our hormones changing and everything else, and our guts changing as we're starting products and whatnot. I'm like, listen, he's probably feeling pretty weird too about things that are going on. Have you stopped to think and look at what he's going through at this time? You know, he's not connecting with his friends and is feeling weird. Maybe he's being awkward because he's not feeling well liked in this circle. So sometimes we have to stop and go, wait a minute. What is this other person looking, feeling, doing? What's their life like? All of those things. You know, and it's the same whether it's for supplements, with our family, with anything else. So asking those questions of how would you feel if you were in this situation? You know, what's going on with that person? And sometimes we might need to grab our upline, our sponsor, our mentor to go and walk you through some of those questions. All right. Anybody else got anything they would like to share?
So I'll just add, as a major introvert over here, and having to learn to be interested in other people. And I love what the book says, and you touched on it, Rochelle, the fact that, be interested in other people. And one of the things I've had to train myself to do is, as you're having conversations with family, friends, coworkers, your team, watch for topics that people light up, they're hot buttons. Just a quick story, and I think I've shared this once before. I was talking with somebody, a coworker, and I just casually mentioned, "So how's figure skating going?" And she lit right up and started talking about the show and her students and the ones that went on to get scholarships. And it's like, all right, file that back in the bank. If conversations kind of, hey, how is figure skating? And watch her light up again. Or any topic, you think of a lot of your friends that have grandchildren. I'm sure they would love to talk about their grandchildren. So just a quick tip, watch for those hot buttons that people really light up and just love to talk about.
Great advice. And it's great too, because especially as an introvert, if you can get them talking more, you don't have to talk as much. It's fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Unless anybody else has anything else they'd like to share, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up tonight. I think this book is fantastic. As I was reading it, I'm like, I think my whole family needs to read this. And I was even talking to the principal at school tonight. We had our open house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many good things in there. Definitely worth reading and implementing. So thank you all. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week.